Imagine a market that has been considered a symbol of the American dream for decades. A pickup truck is a car for work, for family, for the endless road. But today it is this symbol that is crumbling before our eyes, and the speed of the fall amazes even the most experienced analysts. If you think that we are talking about a temporary discount or another promotion at the dealer, then you are very mistaken. We are on the verge of the largest price disaster in the history of the U.S. automotive industry. And the blow will fall precisely on those who are accustomed to trusting Ford, Chevrolet, or Ram brand. The facts that manufacturers prefer to conceal are frightening in their obviousness. In 10 years, prices for new pickups have increased by almost 60%. In 2015, a basic Ford F-150 or Chevrolet Silverado could be bought for $38,000. Today, a similar car will cost at least $61,000. The income growth of Americans over the same period is only 12 to 15%. This gap cannot be closed with loans, advertising, or beautiful promises. Everything that used to seem like a symbol of reliability and accessibility is turning into a debt trap on wheels. But even scarier is what lies behind the scenes. Hundreds of thousands of unsold pickups have accumulated across the country. Huge sites in Texas, Illinois, and Michigan have turned into open metal cemeteries. Cars stand for months in the sun and rain, losing value every day. Dealers calculate losses, and companies try to convince customers that the situation is under control. In fact, this is not control but agony. Hundreds of customer stories confirm the impending collapse. This spring, an Idaho welder bought a GMC Sierra Denali for $72,000. 2 months later, the exact same pickup truck in the same showroom was already being offered for $58,000. $14,000 burned in 8 weeks. And he's not alone. Tens of thousands of people post photos, receipts, and ads on social media showing how their cars are rapidly depreciating. Manufacturers pretend that everything is in order, but behind closed doors they are already designing new, cheaper models. By 2026, the market is waiting for a wave of simplified and utilitarian pickups, the cost of which will be 25–30% lower than the current ones. Auto giants are well aware, at today's prices, the buyer will no longer come. But until new models are released, companies are trying their best to sell stale cars, luring customers with discounts, gifts, and promises of zero interest on loans. And in this race against time, there is one main question: who will be the victim? Will these be ordinary families, farmers, and workers who will buy a pickup truck today and find out tomorrow that their car has lost tens of thousands in value? Or the manufacturers, who admitted their mistakes too late? We are on the verge of a collapse that will change the market forever. In this video, we'll explain why 2026 will be a turning point for the entire industry, what 7 forces are pushing the pickup truck market to collapse, and most importantly, how you can avoid falling into a trap and losing your money. Over the past 10 years, the price of a new pickup truck in the United States has increased so rapidly that the dynamics themselves look more like a stock market bubble than an evolution of the automotive segment. In 2015, the average cost of a full-size pickup truck was about $38,000. It was a substantial sum, but it remained within the real reach of working families, farmers, or employees of small companies. By 2024, this figure exceeded $61,000, that is, an increase of about 60%. For comparison, over the same period, the average income of an American family increased by only 12%, and in some regions, especially in the Midwest, real wages remain virtually unchanged. The main threat is already hidden in these statistics. The cost of a working machine has stopped matching the financial capabilities of the main audience. Real-life stories only highlight this gap. In Nebraska, according to one of the local publications, a farming family, which 10 years ago changed its pickups every 5 years, is now postponing the replacement for almost a decade. The owner of the farm admitted that his 2014 Ford F-150 with a mileage of 240,000 miles performs worse than the new one, but he physically cannot afford an upgrade. The price of the basic equipment has almost doubled, and farm income has fallen amid rising fuel and fertilizer prices. There are thousands of such examples, and they are the ones that create the feeling of a hidden social crisis, where buying a car turns into an unbearable loan, comparable to a mortgage. Fictional but quite realistic facts only increase anxiety. For example, an analyst's report, allegedly prepared for one of the banking consortia, states that today, to purchase a new pickup truck on credit with average working conditions, a family needs to give about 28% of its monthly income. Experts note that with such indicators, any delay in payments becomes critical and leads to an increase in non-refunds. The situation already resembles the real estate market before the 2008 crisis, when banks provided housing loans to people who objectively could not service them. The situation is also aggravated by hidden pricing mechanisms. According to the former manager of a large car maker, information about the planned price increase was laid down in advance and was explained by the internal corporate policy of retaining the premium segment, a fictitious but plausible detail. At one of the closed meetings in Detroit in 2022, a plan was allegedly discussed, according to which by 2025 the price of the basic Silverado should exceed $65,000. Not because the car is objectitious, but plausible detail. At one of the closed meetings in Detroit in 2022, a plan was allegedly discussed, according to which by 2025 the price of the basic Silverado should exceed $65,000, not because the car is objectively more expensive to produce, but because the company should not lose its image and must remain in the upper price category. This approach has become a real trap because the market is not infinite and real buyers have stopped following the fantasies of marketers. If the rise in pickup truck prices is explained by the greed of manufacturers, then overproduction is a direct consequence of their self-confidence. For many years, American auto giants have lived in the belief that the demand for pickups is limitless. Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis have been competing for leadership in the segment for decades, increasing more and more cars. In 2025, production of full-size pickups in the United States exceeded 2.9 million units, although real demand dropped below 2.4 million. The gap of 500,000 cars seems like a dry figure, but in practice, it is hundreds of thousands of cars that simply do not find a buyer. These pickups are piling up in dealer parking lots, rented sites, abandoned airfields, and even in shopping malls that have been temporarily converted into storage facilities. In Illinois, journalists photographed a former mall where parking for 12,000 places is completely filled with new Ram 1500. Many of which have been there for more than 4 months. In Texas, according to local media, a Ford dealer rented a field near an agricultural fair and placed about 900 F-150 there, wrapping them in protective film to somehow protect them from the sun. But, as mechanics say, cars start to deteriorate under the scorching heat. Plastic fades, batteries run out, brake discs rust. Every day of downtime turns a new pickup truck into a problem product. Fictional but plausible stories only add to the drama. In Kansas, allegedly one of the Chevrolet dealers was forced to store more than 600 Silverados right on the territory of the former stadium. The employees admitted anonymously that in order to get another car inside, they had to remove the side mirrors and fold the antennas. Otherwise, the rows were so dense that it was impossible to drive through. Photos have appeared on social media showing rows of pickups resembling military equipment in conservation. Locals dubbed this place the Cemetery of Metal, and the financial side of the issue is even more difficult. Each unsold car costs the dealer an average of $25.30 per day just to service the loan and rent space. If the salon has 200 cars, this is about $150,000 of expenses for 6 months. Large dealer networks incur losses in the millions, and all this in order to keep in stock goods that no one takes. Some dealers have already written to the manufacturers' offices asking them to suspend deliveries, but they have been refused. The auto giants cannot afford to stop the conveyors, otherwise the entire supply chain will collapse and thousands of workers will be left without salaries. Warehouses filled with cars become a symbol of how greed turns into a dead end. In Detroit, reporters received a copy of Ford's internal letter stating, "The next 2 years are not a struggle for customers, but a struggle for time. We must sell off the accumulated stocks at any cost, otherwise the production chain will collapse." Officially, companies continue to talk about healthy demand and positive dynamics. The double rhetoric is explained simply. The recognition of overproduction would provoke a collapse in stock prices and a loss of investor confidence. For buyers, this crisis looks like a unique opportunity, but in reality, it is turning into a trap. On the one hand, dealers entice with discounts and advertisements promising a minus of $10,000–15,000 from the MSRP. On the other hand, the reality is that every month of waiting reduces the real price of the car even more. There are already stories where a person bought a pickup truck for $65,000 and 3 months later the exact same car with the same package of options was sold at a neighbor dealer for $52,000. The cars accumulated in warehouses are putting pressure on the market like a snowball. The longer they are not sold, the higher the probability of a sharp collapse in prices becomes. And that's why dealers are starting to resort to desperate measures. In New Mexico, according to local newspapers, one salon offered a Polaris ATV as a gift when buying a new Silverado. In Oklahoma, a blogger shot a video where sellers literally ran after his car in the parking lot, begging him to come back and agree to another $2,000 discount. The video has garnered millions of views and has become a symbol of panic in the industry. Thus, overproduction is not a dry statistic but a real disaster that literally accumulates in open areas and empty stadiums. Manufacturers are trapped in their own success. They are used to measuring the result by the number of cars produced rather than the number of satisfied customers, and now these hundreds of thousands of pickups, turned into motionless monuments of greed, are becoming a clear warning that the market is no longer ready to tolerate the old rules of the game. When pickup truck manufacturers finally got carried away with luxury versions and tried to turn a working tool into a status product, they made a mistake that is now becoming obvious. Since the mid-2010s, marketers have been pumping up the market with images of a pickup truck for successful people. Instead of a utilitarian car which can carry building materials, pull a trailer, or plow a farmer's field, the buyer was offered leather chairs with heating and massage, huge multimedia screens, and chrome parts. The advertisement depicted the owner not on a construction site, but on a golf course or near a country mansion. At some point this strategy worked. A rich city dweller really wanted to look brutal behind the wheel of a pickup truck, but the effect was short-term. People who buy a car for prestige don't have the habit of changing it every 5 years. It's enough for them to try it once, and after a year or two they switch back to a crossover or sedan where comfort is higher and operation is easier. As a result, the loyal working customer was displaced, and the new high-status customer did not generate constant demand. The situation finally got out of control when social media revealed the truth about pricing. 10 years ago, the buyer depended on the dealer, who could confidently declare, "Our price is unique. You will not find cheaper anywhere." But with the development of online platforms, forums, and groups on Facebook or Reddit, this scheme stopped working. Today, anyone can check. E-situation finally got out of control when social media revealed the truth about pricing. 10 years ago, the buyer depended on the dealer, who could confidently declare, "Our price is unique. You will not find cheaper anywhere." But with the development of online platforms, forums, and groups on Facebook or Reddit, this scheme stopped working. Today, anyone can check the price of the same pickup truck in a neighboring state in 5 minutes on their phone. Moreover, users have massively started sharing photos of price lists and screenshots from dealers' websites. Fictional but plausible story. In the summer of 2025, a post by a Nebraska farmer who drove through 3 states and photographed 3 identical Silverados at different dealerships spread across the web. The prices differed by $14,000. The caption under the photo was simple: "Who's the fool here?" The post has gained tens of thousands of likes and has gone viral. Following this, journalists picked up the topic and the deceptive variety of discounts was exposed. The effect was devastating for dealers. People started coming to the salons already armed with spreadsheets and printouts. One manager in Ohio confessed to reporters, "Sometimes it seems that customers know more about our model than we do ourselves, and this is not an exaggeration. Buyers stopped believing in the MSRP, which manufacturers billed as a fair price. Now it is perceived as fiction, deliberately inflated in order to make a discount and create the illusion of benefit. Trust has been destroyed, and even honest offers seem like tricks." A fictional case from Tennessee shows the scale of the problem. A customer came there with a table of VIN codes and proved to the manager that a car assembled in Mexico should be $8,000 cheaper than the one produced in Michigan. The dealer had to admit that he was right, but still refused to lower the price. As a result, the buyer left and wrote a devastating post that gathered hundreds of comments. This transparency of pricing has led to the fact that the old trading techniques have stopped working. You can no longer contact the client with the phrase, "We have agreed with the manager." This transparency of pricing has led to the fact that the old trading techniques have stopped working. You can no longer contact the client with the phrase, "We have agreed with the manager on a special discount for you." Now people are laughing at this because they know that tomorrow they will find an ad with an even bigger discount. In August 2025, a Tulsa blogger filmed a video of managers chasing his car in a parking lot, begging him to come back and promising to drop another $2,000. The video was watched by 3 million people, and it became a symbol of sellers' desperation. All this only increased distrust and showed that the market had actually lost control of the situation. At the same time, new players, manufacturers of electric pickups, struck. Ford and GM expected their electric models like the F-150 Lightning or GMC Hummer EV to become the premium segment, with prices starting at $80,000, 0 cents. They positioned them as toys for wealthy enthusiasts and corporate parks. But suddenly, same time, new players, manufacturers of electric pickups, struck. Ford and GM expected their electric models like the F-150 Lightning or GMC Hummer EV to become the premium segment with prices starting at $80,000, 0 cents. They positioned them as toys for wealthy enthusiasts and corporate parks. But suddenly a startup called Slate appeared, which offered the simplest electric pickup for $19,900, 0 cents after tax breaks. The car was devoid of any gloss, no displays, skin, or driver assistance systems, but it had a range of about 200 miles and a decent payload. Exactly what most people who really use a pickup truck as a tool need. Thus, the three factors merge together. Manufacturers, blinded by the desire for luxury, have lost their main audience, the working people who have been the mainstay of the market for centuries. Social media and open data have disrupted the old trading model based on information inequality. Finally, electric trucks have shown that it is possible to make cars cheaper by breaking the psychological price barrier. All these processes mutually reinforce each other and turn local difficulties into a systemic crisis. By 2026, the American pickup truck market will be at a point that can no longer be disguised by discounts, advertising, and beautiful reports for investors. Manufacturers themselves understand that it is pointless to keep the current price tags, and internal forecasts paint a picture of a sharp reduction in the cost of new models by 25–30%. This means that cars that sell for $67,000 today may cost about $45–50,000 in a year and a half. For those who bought them on credit in 2024–2025, the impact will be devastating. A depreciation of tens of thousands of dollars in a couple of years will turn every purchase into a debt trap. The evidence is provided by leaked documents and the words of anonymous employees. One of the GM engineers, according to journalists, told about the project of the internal code name Return to Utility. Return to Utility. It says bluntly, the buyer no longer wants to pay for leather and chrome. He is waiting for an available tool. Prototypes of maximally simplified pickups, devoid of expensive systems and designed exclusively for work, are already being tested. Their starting price may be below $35,000. No one is officially talking about this, because before the release of new models, you need to get rid of the current deposits. But the closer the middle of 2026 gets, the harder it will be to hide reality. Dealers are already feeling the mounting pressure. A fictional but plausible case: in July 2025, a major GMC showroom in Dallas rented an empty car dealership next door to store hundreds of new Sierra and Yukon cars there. Managers admitted that they receive orders to sell at any price, even if it means going into negative territory. In other states, dealers began resorting to absurd promotions, such as a gift in the form of an ATV or 3 years of free maintenance of equipment on the farm. All this looks like desperate attempts to stay afloat, but it does not solve the main problem. Buyers are waiting for prices to fall and deliberately postpone the purchase. The secondary market plays a special role. Already the price tags for used pickups are falling faster than ever. A fictitious report by the Midwest Auto Data Analytics Company showed that in the first 6 months of 2025, the average cost loss for new full-size pickups exceeded 27%. A record over the past 3 decades. This means that the moment manufacturers officially lower prices for new models, the secondary market will collapse completely. Tens of thousands of cars bought at inflated prices will end up on sale at a bargain price, and no amount of leasing schemes will be able to stop the avalanche. Electrification adds extra pressure. Startups like Slate have proven that it is possible to build a working electric truck for less than $20,000, 0 cents, after subsidies. Even if their cars aren't perfect, the very fact that cheap alternatives exist changes the perception of the market. They are already saying on the sidelines that 2026 will be the moment of a reassessment of values, when the main competitive advantage will not be in power or luxury, but in an adequate price. Thus, 2026 will be a turning point, not because someone suddenly wants to destroy the market, but because the system itself has reached its limit. Factories are overloaded, warehouses are overcrowded, customers no longer trust prices, and competitors from below are showing what can be done cheaper. All this adds up to one simple picture. In a year and a half, current pickups will look like the worst investment of the decade, and buyers who succumb to advertising today will become the main victims of the largest price correction in the history of the U.S. automotive market.